A few hours away from the Renault Clio Trophy 2000, this driver hasn't necessarily turned his back on success. His name's Guillaume GREUET, the remarkable winner of the Renault Clio Trophy 1999. He promised to come back in the 2000 season from time to time just for the pleasure, while in the throes of preparing for the French Super Tourism Championships in a Clio looking something like this. Little sister racing in the Clio Trophy 2000. The Clio Trophy is demanding, difficult and a little special, so says Guillaume GREUET, at a time when Luca Rangoni puts his car into pole position on the starting grid. The weather is uncertain, leaving a question mark over whether to use rain tyres or go for broke with slicks. Saw him taking a very good start. Luca Rangoni places himself easily at the head of the pack after an early tangle, which will put a few out of the running, including Policon, the Portuguese driver Magalhães, and Italian MOCCIA, among others. After this rather turbulent start, 3 laps of the safety car put some order back into things. Here's Rangoni ahead of the Greek driver DEVERIKOS, the Swedish Anderson, the Frenchman MATIFAS, the Italian BALZAN and the Dutch driver Blackmullen. But coming out of the parabolic, Luca Rangoni, who goes a little wide due to the wet track, hits the safety barriers and puts an end to what looked like being a very successful day. In the lead, Dimitri DEVERIKOS takes control of the situation, leading with a good margin ahead of Matthias Andersson and Eric MATIFAS. Here, coming from the depths of the pack, the Italian Alessandro Balzan, making a cannonball comeback. He screams right up the tailpipe of the leader and ends up attacking with so much authority that anyone might think the race is already over. Beyond this duel, we can see the return of a third runner, La Ronde, in the red car at the entry to this tight chicane that in Italy carries the prudish name of Variant. Dutch driver Coen, VINK, having started from the 12th line, 23rd position on the grid, powers back in an incredible attempt to get into the #1 position. Here he's made it to 2nd position, and he waits until the last minute to attack and go for an extraordinarily cheeky surprise victory. The pole was taken with an average of 168 kilometers an hour on this treacherous Monza track. VINK completed the 12 laps at an average of 131. Giuseppe GIRO, he succeeded in snatching the pole position in front of Luca Rangoni. There's no surprises. GIRO and Rangoni retain the same positions after the start. Rangoni won't wait long before attacking GIRO, though. It's all going to happen in the space of the next few seconds. Rangoni gets through. The track is a difficult one with a lot of changes of pace. The drivers have to be careful where they step at the risk of fatal results. Rangoni pushes and beats the lap record with an average speed of around 140. Number 8, Alain Gonneau, has made it up to 4th place just behind Anderson. He ends up dropping back to 18th position. Rangoni, as we see here, is leading with a 3-second gap ahead of GIRO. Alesi, third placed, is already quite a way further back. Anderson also more than 4 seconds behind. With his first victory at an average speed of 138 kilometers per hour and the Rangoni method, have we perhaps already discovered the year 2000 star of the Clio Trophy? Chapter 1, Rangoni is on the left in the yellow car. He's off like a bullet ahead of MOCCIA, GIRO and Anderson. We're in the third lap, and there's a race incident for one of the leading runners. It's Anderson in the white car who attacks GIRO in the downhill section. But the going gets a little too hot, and he and GIRO come into contact. The result is that Anderson will find himself facing the wrong way around, and the yellow flag that we see on the left will be transformed for him in just a few seconds into a black flag. Balzan, the best lap time so far. Ruffier, Gunno, Blackmullen, they're the main players in this round, a round that Rangoni will cream virtually without any hassles whatsoever, ahead of MOCCIA with a general average speed of around 106 kilometers an hour. It's the next day, Sunday midday, that we discover the second round. Seen from the inside, things look pretty hot, even one might say burning hot. Sebastian Blackmullen will hit the barrier at Zandvoort and will be out of the running for the rest of the race. Coen VINK takes his turn to be victim of the Monegasque labyrinth. Here we see James Ruffier in full flight. The Frenchman, after having pushed through past Michael Blackmullen and Alain Gunno, now gets past Balzan. He comes up fast on Rangoni, and behind this heated exchange, Gunno has it in for Balzan, and the duel ends up in a very spectacular and final manner in the Zandvoort, where the two cars, badly damaged, obstruct the track, which is particularly covered in oil. The red flag thus comes out, and the upshot of this clearly curtain call is that after 9 laps, Luca Rangoni is declared winner ahead of Blackmullen, Ruffier, Balzan and Gunno. Rangoni thus installs himself as clear leader of the Clio Trophy. After a disastrous start with the lights still red, a flag comes out of the same color for a return to the starting line. The safety car launches 53 Clios into motion, including the pole position holder in black, James Ruffier. And they're off for 10 laps in a race during which the sand traps will prove themselves to be very welcoming for a number of competitors. Ruffier is leading the downhill section ahead of the German driver Chamard, MOCCIA, Edens, Bolin, Anderson, Magalhaes and Policon. But Ruffier doesn't have any illusions about going it alone. Peter Chamard in the blue car, number 71, who will make life difficult for Ruffier. He is dueling for the number 1 position, and this German driver in the running of the championship in that country is a bit of a case with 3 accidents in 3 races. But here, he's on another planet. For a little while, Ruffier recuperates his not very comfortable leader's chair, but Chamard insists it goes down to the bravest of the two. Polycan here is attacking Anderson for 4th place. Then he attacks BALZAN, while Ruffier goes on to break the lap record. All of a sudden, Ruffier is dropping back a notch. He's forced to take a stop-and-go penalty, the motive being for overtaking while the yellow flag was out. For this same motive, a little later, Polycan will retire. Peter Charmard is in the lead, and he can feel the victory coming, and indeed he takes a checkered flag for what's a surprise win for this outsider, who will have great pleasure in seeing again at Zandvoort and Nürburgring. His average speed was 151 kilometers an hour, winning ahead of MOCCIA, Anderson, Edens, Beltoise and Gabion.
Yeah.
Polycan leaps out at the start, but it won't be long before he realizes that Ralf Druckenmüller, the German driver, is out for blood. The order starts to make itself clear. The duo of Polycan and Druckenmüller detaches itself from the rest of the field. Rangoni's already 2 seconds behind, while Anderson is 4 seconds off the lead. Polycan is keeping an eye on the rear-view mirror, but this won't prevent Druckenmüller from attacking in the 11th lap. During 4 laps, Polycan hangs on for grim death into the slipstream of the German driver. Rangoni has to be careful now, because things are hotting up in the group before heading off for a little off-road driving. Like here we see Coen VINK in a delicate operation with Scalera. After a few incidents of this kind, the way is a little clearer for Rangoni, who's thinking about his points for the championship. And Polycan is in the 15th lap. He'll take back what was his before, leading position, that is, ahead of Druckenmüller. Jérôme Polycan goes on to take the victory ahead of Druckenmüller and Rangoni, who saves the essential amidst a few spectacular and very destructive skirmishes.
Hey, congratulations. Very, very good race.
The French driver GREUET is the author of pole position. Ralf Druckenmüller, the mysterious silhouette, is dreaming of revenge in the Euro Cup in between 2 races in the German Championship. Luca Rangoni and Andrea Balicki will be the other stars of this race over 16 laps of the 4.3 kilometers of this Dutch circuit. The safety car moves off the track, allowing the first attack of 43 cars in this race, and GREUET is off into the lead. The attack is on. Ralf Druckenmüller in the grey car attacks the leader, and despite this incident, everybody gets off without a scratch. Here's Druckenmüller out in the lead now, far from the worries of the following pack. Such as here with the Greek driver DEVERIKOS, who has a few problems, and Polycan, who's off the track after an altercation with Michael Blackmullen. Blackmullen is at it again. Thanks to his tenacious driving, he'll finish second. In Into the 8th lap and halfway through the race just behind Druckenmüller, look at this image of some excellent teamwork. It's Beliki who opens the door to Luca Rangoni, who moves up into 3rd place. A little bit further on, it's the same scenario despite some pretty scary braking. Rangoni passes through the opening that's been made for him by GRUET. Rangoni, leader of the Euro Cup, is now running 2nd. Edifying Druckenmüller, followed by the yellow squadron of 3 Clios, driven by Rangoni, GRUET and Beliki. They catch up on the tail enders for 1 lap. And Beliki here with the number 83 takes the place that GRUET had been hoping for from the start. The gang of 4 that dominated the race from start to finish in that order. Druckenmüller wins with an average speed of 133. Anderson finishes 5th, 16 seconds behind. Rangoni has a lead of 26 points in the Euro Cup Championship table. Practice session of this round at Nürburgring was well watered. The Clio Trophy will thus head out in wet conditions. The rain will be a deciding factor and the slightest error will finish in calamity. In the lead already, it's Luca Rangoni, who had started from pole position. It was logical that he step into the lead. Behind Luca Rangoni, it's already the disarray here. A bunch of top cars eliminated, among them Druckenmüller, GRUET and Policon. All their illusions of a podium finish have finished in the sand of this very first lap. As a result, the situation of Luca Rangoni, the leader of the championship, becomes very comfortable, even though the race is far from being stabilized. Well, the track is very slippery. Staying on the track seems to be harder than heading off onto the grass, and more than one take this way out. Driving a Clio in these kinds of conditions requires a great deal of mastery in racing, and it's a little like walking on eggshells. This pile-up brings the race organizers to send out the safety car for 2 laps to put a little order back into the running in a pack of cars that's been somewhat thinned out and wizened, where the German driver Dennis Bollin in the grey car is tempting his chances behind Rangoni. And as we can see, he goes a little bit too far. Just a short while later, it's the excellent Greek driver DEVERIKOS who goes for a tour on the grass with the door open, somewhat under the emotion of the incident, no doubt. Meanwhile, courageous and reckless Dennis Bollin, despite his double spin, comes back into the forward positions. Luca Rangoni is leading ahead of Alessandro Balzan and Vito Postiglione. Rangoni wins yet again here at Nürburgring ahead of Alessandro Balzan and Dennis Bollin, having made an amazing comeback. Fred Gabion, Matthias Anderson and GIRO finish in good positions behind Postiglione in 4th place. Renault Sport Clio Trophy seems to have found its leader for some time now, and that man hopes to find at the finish line here in Valencia a European title. And it's done. Luca Rangoni, at the head of an impressive pack of 44 cars, will wipe the table one more time and lay down the law, despite the resistance in the early stages of Frédéric Gabion. It's a well-known fact, making one's place in the Clio Trophy is a difficult thing. The track often peppered with little surprises. Patience is worth more than insistence. Rangoni in the lead, just a few laps away from victory, a new victory and a title. Another destiny, that of Saez, the Spanish driver who does some interesting figures in the middle of the track. Interesting enough to cause the race marshals to call a safety car back out onto the track. The incident's without any major consequences and won't influence the result for the future winner and future champion. Rangoni is victorious, but Anderson, BALZAN and VINK are still all poised to take the position of runner-up in the championship.
Bravo, Rango!
The title of Renault Sport Clio Trophy might be decided, but the hunger for victory remains intact. Jérôme Polican, the 1999 champion, is back. GRUET is looking to shine, as are Rangoni and Beltoise. The public certainly won't be let down. Here's Jérôme Polican, who installs himself in the lead at the head of the pack with a demonstration of self-assurance. Polican, Druckenmüller, Beltoise and Rangoni for the first battle. Here in grey, it's Druckenmüller who takes command ahead of Polican, Beltoise and Rangoni. Anthony Beltoise is creeping up on Druckenmüller, while Polican and Rangoni are left to battle it out between each other. Druckenmüller, under incredible pressure from Anthony Beltoise, is forced into error in braking, and it's Beltoise who steps into the lead. Second is Polican, followed by Rangoni. Polican and Rangoni, at least up until the point when the tail end is a little lax in getting out of Polican's way. His hopes for a podium finish are dashed as he heads off onto the grass. Anthony Beltoise is triumphant here at Magny-Cours, ahead of Luca Rangoni and a very, very regular Guillaume GREUET. We now move on to Valencia for the Europe of Formula 2000, who are meeting here to decide a champion. It's a moment to ponder over the success of the Formula 2000, which was spawned from a simple idea by Renault, that of giving young drivers around the age of 20 all the means to make it to the real high-level racing. With open wheelers that are light and very safe, equipped with the 2-litre engine of the Clio RS, the Euro Cup was an instant success. From Brazil to Central Europe, 47 candidates battled it out for a 36th-place final with an impressive deployment of force, as witnessed by the paddock of the Spanish circuit. The other absolute arm is the Clio Trophy, of course, in the line of 30 years of motorsport promotion and an heir to the tradition of the legendary Renault 8 Gordini in the R5. The Clio puts on a great show on an international level. Here in Valencia, the desire to win the final round whets the appetites at the end of a very exciting season. Welcomed by the Spanish public's particularly warm, with Jérôme Polican on pole position. It will be the last of the season and the last of his season, dominated by Luca Rangoni. Behind Jérôme Polican in the lead at the start, Postiglione and GIRO battle to retain the contact. Druckenmüller's temporarily boxed in, and Rangoni will be in just a few moments one of the first to be shoved into the sand trap. take a little tour at the interior of the pack to get an impression of the most fugitive among them. The order appears to be settling down behind Jérôme Polican, but appearances in the Clio Trophy are often deceptive. The battle's heating up and things will become even more interesting as they present themselves three abreast in the first left-hander after the pit straight. Druckenmüller leaves good manners to the four wins to the detriment of GIRO and Postiglione.
Della prima curva con lotta tra due piloti italiani e si tenta di inserirsi anche Druckenmüller, attenzione, Druckenmüller in seconda perdono posizione tra piloti italiani.
Things become even more complicated for the two Italian drivers who will yet again find themselves in an uncomfortable threesome, a little delicate to handle. Dust haze is like any haze, it dissipates, and the situation appears to be somewhat clarified, for the moment anyway. Behind the untouchable Polican, GREUET and the Portuguese driver Aguas are struggling for the best place on the podium. It'll be in the 26th and last lap that Aguas will take the better of GREUET. Jérôme Polican crosses the finish line to take the victory. Yet another great memory to be added to that of the 1999 season when he'd been crowned champion.
Bravo, super. Hein? Ouais.
The future of Renault's motorsports promotion after 30 years of success looks yet again like it will be full of promise. Given the quality of the year 2000 season and the redemption of Formula One, hopes are being kindled as underlined by the chairman of Renault Sport, Patrick Faure.
Ça nous a toujours semblé être une de nos
It's
tâches.
always seemed to us to be one of our tasks as manufacturers impassioned by motorsport to be able to offer on different levels of competition, and it should be said at different budget levels as well, the possibility to race. And when the racing is exciting, it's even better. And among the 400 drivers that are competing this weekend, we also say to ourselves that there could be one or two who, following through the right channels right up to the top, may be driving a Renault in a few years in Formula One. That's not why we organize these special promotional formulas, but we nevertheless have an eye on the best drivers. When you see the maturity of a young driver like Massa or Volsman in Formula 2000, they're very young but very professional. Yes, that hasn't escaped our attention. We're watching with interest. Could we speak about a Renault career ladder? I think it's perhaps a little too early. We're considering what to do since we announced our return to Formula One. Perhaps not to create a career ladder, but to create a kind of Renault nebula, meaning that at each level of competition, not necessarily to have a Renault or Renault Sport team, but to have one or two teams at each level that we could form partnerships with, to assist them financially or technically, and in exchange be able to have our own drivers and engineers as well, to create cocoons and see how they develop. It's a bit like the world we live in, the idea of career ladders and networks. We'd like to create a Renault network on virtually every level of competition, but not necessarily always 100% Renault Sport. I think there's an idea to be exploited, and we'll be talking quite a lot with Christian Conson and Flavio Briatore. You'd no doubt be happy if the Renault Formula One team was made up of drivers who are 100% Renault. It would be an extra, but we're nevertheless conscious that the step up to victory in Formula One has become a lot higher than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And without having any illusions, we know that it's going to be very, very difficult. And that's why I can't be running with one arm behind my back. When we will choose people, it will be with the certitude of being able to win. It was already true 5 or 6 years ago, but today you can't compensate for any weakness whatsoever. If you have a bad tire, the wrong oil, the wrong driver, an error in chassis design, the engine that isn't reliable, the slightest ingredient that doesn't work properly in Formula One, and you just can't win. We can no longer have the slightest impasse, nor take the slightest risk. You have to be perfect in everything, and that's hard. Your new adventure is without risk. Despite being 6 times world champion, there's still a percentage. Of course there's a risk because you have to beat the others. There's only one car that can win each race and only one champion at the end of the season. But we perhaps have an advantage over certain others that are coming back at the moment, in that we know what it's like to be able to win at the highest level. We know how hard that is, how demanding it is, and you won't hear any member of our team saying that we're going to be world champion in 2002. No one, because no one believes that. We'll try and be as good as possible to be among the leaders, those battling for the lead, but we know that it takes time. We saw Mercedes and McLaren took a long time to get there. As for Ferrari, they took 21 years. Our objective is to be a little faster than that. You're very discreet. The atmosphere around the preparation of the new Renault is very quiet. There's a mysterious atmosphere. Without saying that we'll see what we see, you're going to bring in some very revolutionary solutions. They won't all be introduced in 2002. Effectively, we have in virtually all fields some ideas that if they work will be revolutionary. Not everything will come to fruition because they're sometimes so audacious that technically they may not get past the drawing board. That must be annoying for your competitors. We like that, and in a way that's our goal, to try to get there. But the thing that surprised me the most in the past 6 months since we've come back, and we're quite discreet on the circuit this year, but we still informed ourselves, we kept an ear to the ground, is that Formula One has made yet another step forward in terms of complexity and technology, as well as reliability. The thing that struck me this year was, for the top teams, the virtually total reliability of the engines. We can see that the level of demands is even higher still. The level of difficulty has yet again risen, and that's why we're getting back there a 1/10 of a second at a time. It won't be easy, but that's what we're there for. We have an advantage, which is that the two teams have both already been world champions, and they know what it's like. They're motivated, and they have people who are very competent. We're reinforcing that, and we'll continue to reinforce it. It just has to work. Your calendar is retained for 2002. Does this mean you'll unveil the car beforehand or not? The objective today, and there's no reason to believe that we won't make it, is to be ready for fighting among the leading places from the very first races of 2002. We have to be able, on the one hand, to increase the performance levels of the engine and to work on reliability during 2001 in order, from the very first Grand Prix of 2002, perhaps not to win, but to be among those fighting for the victory. Not to be among the mid-runners in the pack. This implies some important private testing during 2001. It also implies an appearance at a Grand Prix at the end of the season, or is it utopian to believe that? No, what's clear is that there are a certain number of elements in the car for 2002 that will already exist in 2001, but the 2002 car will appear in 2002. Renault has always been motivated by its adventure in Formula One. That's a characteristic. The personnel has always felt like it was involved. How is the company itself living this new beginning? It may be a little mysterious because there's not a lot of information getting around. It's a little bit this, that's true. The staff were very happy to learn about our return. They're conscious of the challenge that this represents, but deep down they're waiting for 2002 because that's when the bell will toll and when we'll see our first results. They're quite conscious of the fact that 2001 will be our return in 2002. There isn't too much pressure on 2001, and it's fine like that. To end as we began, would you say that the arrival of Formula One is going to assist in a rebounding of promotional formulas and other vocations? Will this not create a new dynamic? That's our hope. The idea is to do that. Someone asked whether this wouldn't all be to the detriment of the promotional formulas, and I replied that Formula One would in fact be the contrary. The fact of coming back into Formula One with the entire car and important ambitions means that a large number of young drivers who get into promotional formulas will be very much tempted to join one of the Renault formulas. And we may also see some other ideas, because everything evolves in life and it may motivate them to think. Within the nebula I was talking about, from go-karts right up to Formula One, to invent other solutions and competitions for the future. So, not only will we not go backwards in promotional formulas, I'm convinced we're going to progress, and perhaps thanks to this we may find a young driver or drivers, I hope French, who will mark Formula One at the end of the first decade of this new century.